This Tuesday night, on the eve of the final deadline for passing key pending bills, Korea's president urges lawmakers to get over with pointless dispute and get on with business. One of those bills, counterterrorism bill. 3 illegal immigrants, one of whom was plotting a suicide bombing attack, have been deported from Korea for following a terrorist group affiliated with the Al-Qaeda, says Seoul's intelligence agency. And the price of oil takes a nosedive to a 7-year low. While cheap gas is good news for Korea in the short run, super low oil prices for an extended period of time cast dark cloud over the economy. News Center begins right now. Good evening to our viewers in Korea and hello to those around the world. This is News Center. President Park held a cabinet meeting today and her focus on the eve of a looming deadline in Parliament to approve a set of key pending bills was another strong message to lawmakers. Enough with the political wrangling, get on with business and pass a handful of bills that affect people's day-to-day lives. Arirang News Presidential Office correspondent Hwang Sang-hee joins us live from the top office. Sang-hee, what kind of bills are we talking about here?
Kanyang, the focus of today's cabinet meeting was getting the parliament to pass a set of pending bills. That includes the anti-terrorism bill, which President Park says is the only way to prevent terrorism here in South Korea. At a cabinet meeting on Tuesday, President Park noted that Seoul cannot fully cooperate with the international community nor exchange intelligence on terrorism without a basic law on the books.
앞으로 상상하기 힘든 테러로 우리 국민들이 피해를 입게 되었을 때 그 책임이 국회에도 있다는 사실을 분명히 말씀드리고 국민들이 그 책임을 물을 것입니다.
Following last month's deadly terror attacks in Paris, South Korea's rival parties agreed to begin discussions on passage of the anti-terrorism bill. The country is no safe haven when it comes to terrorism. An Indonesian citizen with a forged passport was recently arrested for possible connections to a terrorist group affiliated with Al-Qaeda. At the same meeting, President Park urged rival parties to put aside their differences and pass a handful of economy-related bills, including ones on job creation and labor reform. The president warned that lawmakers must act in line with their words to meet the public's expectations.
국회가 말로는 일자리 창출을 외치면서도 행동은 정반대로 노동개혁 입법을 무산시킨다면 국민의 열망은 실망과 분노가 되어 되돌아올 것입니다.
With the regular parliamentary session set to end on Wednesday, other bills awaiting the National Assembly's endorsement include one that aims to boost the service sector and another that addresses North Korea's dire human rights situation. Kanyang?
Well, really the final push by the president to make bills into law deemed critical for the average Koreans. Thanks, Sang-hee. That was our Hwang Sang-hee from the nation's top office. Well, there are two sides to every story. Now, the one from the National Assembly goes as follows. Rival parties just cannot agree on a number of bills put forth by each party. Now, these bills need to be okayed by the National Assembly before the regular parliamentary session comes to an end on Wednesday, that is tomorrow. Our parliamentary correspondent Park Ji-won tells us what exactly is holding them up.
The deputy floor leaders of the two main rebel parties met for talks Tuesday morning, aiming to legislate the bills each party hopes to pass. But they came away empty-handed. The ruling Saenuri party wants to pass several economy-related bills, such as an act on promoting the service industry, a bill that makes M&As easier, and a counter-terrorism act. The Conservative Party pressed the opposition camp for cooperation, accusing it of deliberately delaying discussions on the bills in committee, and urged lawmakers to be more responsible to its legislative duties.
It's very frustrating to see that all the urgent bills for improving the livelihoods of the people, which both parties agreed to pass within this session, haven't been discussed yet.
The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party, which is also pushing for passage of a number of bills, including one aimed at improving cooperation between conglomerates and the small and medium-sized companies, said the economy-related bills promoted by the ruling bloc do not reflect the interests and demands of ordinary people and the middle class. The Liberal Party accused the presidential office of pressuring the parliament, saying the parliament belongs to people, not to the president. The party also expressed their opposition to labor-related bills. The party emphasized that a previous agreement made on December 2nd, under which party leaders had agreed to pass labor reform bills during the next extraordinary session, was based on an existing bipartisan agreement. And as long as the conditions for the original agreement are not met, the party can never accept the bills.
We say once again that the party can never accept the passage of the 5 labor reform bills that ruling party and the government are pushing, as they are unjust laws and will only create more irregular positions.
Meanwhile, the ruling party unilaterally submitted a request to convene an extraordinary session on Thursday, right after the regular session ends on Wednesday. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
We're learning today of another lead which further raises awareness that Korea is not a safe zone from global terror attacks. The National Intelligence Service has revealed that 3 illegal immigrants of Indonesian nationality explicitly threatened to carry out bomb attacks here in Korea and were deported for following an al-Qaeda affiliate group. For details, here's Song Ji-sun.
3 illegal immigrants with Indonesian nationality have been deported, while a 4th one is being questioned for supporting terrorist group. Korea's spy agency said Tuesday that a 32-year-old Indonesian man was deported last week for violating country's Immigration Control Act. The man, whose identity was not released, was found to support al-Nusra, an al-Qaeda affiliate, and wanted to get involved in jihad. He raised funds for Islamist fighters through a bank account and posted on his Facebook page that he would carry out a suicide bombing attack. Another 32-year-old Indonesian in Chungcheongnam-do province is being questioned by police for possessing a mock M16 rifle and a Bowie knife. He entered the country with a fake passport. In his SNS account, this man vowed to die a martyr, willing to participate in the Syrian war next year. His 2 Indonesian friends, who were also supporters of the same terror group, were deported last month. One of them had been telling people he will die fighting against the U.S. and Russia. Police have revved up investigation on illegal immigrants, but currently there is no law against scheming attacks except for deportation for possessing illegal weapons. Amidst Islamic extremist terror threats spreading around the world, Korean lawmakers are being pressured to pass an anti-terrorism bill. President Park Geun-hye on Tuesday also called on the need to expedite that process, stressing that even the IS know that Seoul has no law against terrorism. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
In the face of growing terror threats around the globe and obviously in Korea as well, the South Korean military is also boosting readiness against any kind of terrorist attack. Anti-terror drills against chemical attacks is one of the Republic of Korea military's regular training exercises. Arirang News correspondent was given an inside look at the drill. You'd be surprised how real it seems. Practice like it's real, so when it's real, it's just like practice. Our Connie Kim reports.
A loud explosive sound signals that this building is under chemical attack. Toxic gas starts spreading instantly, putting the people inside in danger. When the attack is reported to the police, the military's CBR operations team, which specializes in chemical, biological, and radiological warfare, is deployed to the site.
여기 112 경찰서입니다. 터미널에서 화학 테러 의심 상황이 발생하였습니다. 군 화학부대는 신속히 출동해 주시기 바랍니다.
The event isn't real, it's a drill, and it's being used to help train the military. The team arrives in a chemical reconnaissance vehicle and a decontamination truck. After checking to see whether the site has been contaminated, they get ready to execute decontamination operations. Shortly afterward, a support team arrives on site and hooks up a live video feed of the site to transmit images to the Joint Chiefs of Staff headquarters. They also conclude that additional personnel are needed to decontaminate the area. This is when the CBR Special Forces team arrives. The agents enter the building to start their search for the explosive. A robot is sent into the building too, and it'll be controlled by a device set up outside the building in a remote chemical detection vehicle. Once inside, the robot detects toxic gas and moves the suspected explosive away from the building in case of an additional explosion. Once the device is brought outside, agents decontaminate the scene. But the operation doesn't end there. Samples of the contaminant are collected and transported to a mobile laboratory set up nearby. Pollutant samples acquired from the accident site are thoroughly analyzed in this mobile laboratory vehicle, the only kind in the country. The Korean military says the drills will help it be prepared to respond to potential terror threats.
With rising chemical, biological and radiological threats at terminals and multi-use facilities, we will swiftly carry out initial response measures whenever there are terror attacks.
In light of growing terror threats following attacks in Paris, Russia and Lebanon, Korea's military is also boosting its readiness against potential acts of chemical, biological or radiological warfare. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
More details are emerging in the aftermath of the San Bernardino shooting. Officials are calling it an act of terrorism, but it's still unclear why the couple behind the deadly rampage carried out the attack and whether they were in fact directed by groups outside of the country. More questions, trail of clues. Our Kwon Jang-ho reports.
Hundreds gathered on Monday for a candlelight vigil to remember the 14 victims killed in the San Bernardino attack. It's almost been a week since the shooting, but the victims' families and the rest of the nation are still struggling to understand how it all happened. So far, authorities have interviewed more than 400 people, searched the shooter's residence multiple times, and collected hundreds of pieces of evidence. Yet many key questions are still unanswered.
Both subjects were radicalized and have been for quite some time. The question we're trying to get at is how did that happen, and by whom, and where did that happen? And I will tell you right now, we don't know those answers at this point.
The FBI have found evidence to suggest that the couple have been preparing for an attack for some time. They visited local shooting ranges as recently as a few days before the massacre. The FBI also confirmed that the female suspect, Tashfeen Malik, was born in Pakistan and had ties with Islamabad's Red Mosque, which is notorious for its connections to Islamic fundamentalism. The mosque has since denied any association. It has also been revealed that Malik posted a pledge of allegiance to ISIS on Facebook shortly after the rampage began. But surprisingly, unlike the Paris attacks and previous similar incidents, the Islamic State group did not claim direct involvement. President Obama has since given an Oval Office speech saying the US will destroy ISIS, and Homeland Security has announced it will introduce a new terror warning system in the near future. But with so many unknowns and concerns lingering, it makes it difficult to reassure any country that another attack will not happen again. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
South Korea has been chosen to head the United Nations' leading human rights body for next year. It's also when the UNHRC marks its 10th anniversary. For the first time since the establishment of the South Korean government, the country will be leading an international human rights organization. What does it mean for Seoul to chair a human rights body, and what can we expect from the new leadership role? Our Kwon So-ah explains.
The United Nations Human Rights Council. It's the body responsible for promoting and protecting human rights around the world. And it's appointed Korean diplomat Choi Kyung-nim as its president for 2016. Choi is Korea's permanent representative to the UN office in Geneva and will replace current Human Rights Council President Joachim Rücker of Germany. This is the first time Korea has been selected to lead an international human rights organization since Korea's current government was established in 1948.
Seoul's Foreign Affairs Ministry says the UN's decision shows that the international community values Korea's achievements toward democratization and its contributions to improving human rights around the world.
There are expectations that with South Korea in the seat, it'll enhance the Council's role in dealing with North Korea's record on human rights.
Of course, the chairperson of the UN Human Rights Council should represent all 47 member states. So North Korea issue should not be the most important or special issue to be treated. But remember that it was the publication of the Commission of Inquiry written by the special rapporteur appointed by the same Human Rights Council that addressed the issue of human rights violation inside North Korea to be more seriously addressed by the international society.
Choi Kyung-nim said that over the past 10 years, the Council has accomplished a lot by establishing a framework for promoting and protecting human rights. He said now is the time to put those mechanisms into effect. He also acknowledged global challenges such as terrorism and climate change, which are accompanied by new and complex human rights issues. Beginning January 1st, Choi will lead regular council sessions, review and monitor the human rights records of all UN member states, and call for meetings in emergency situations. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Global oil prices continue to slide, dropping to lows not seen since 2009. This follows OPEC's decision to not put the brakes on production, which has dented the already beleaguered oil markets. Well, is an extended period of super low oil prices good news for the Korean economy, which of course relies on oil imports to meet 97% of its energy demand? Well, in the short run, definitely yes. In the long run, maybe not so much. Our Shin Se-min explains.
Oil prices plunged to near 7-year lows on Monday as a direct result of OPEC continuing to pump massive supplies amid a global glut. The U.S. benchmark West Texas Intermediate crude fell to $37.65 a barrel, shedding 5.8%. Brent crude dropped 5% to $40.73 a barrel for its lowest settlement since February 2009. Depressed oil prices are also hitting global financial markets. Korea's benchmark Kospi fell 0.75%, while Shanghai Composite closed down 1.89% on Tuesday. Now, for Korea, all this means two things. Korea had been enjoying lower import bills and transportation costs on the back of cheaper oil prices, but it could also lead to negative impact on the local economy. A continuous fall in global oil prices could potentially stir deflationary effects. Many local firms are losing revenue because low oil prices means they have to lower the price of their products amid weak demand, thereby lowering their trade volume. Korea's exports this year dropped for the 11th straight month.
It's going to be even more difficult, especially for companies that buy crude oil and sell petroleum products, as it will be hard to make profit.
Petroleum, chemicals, construction, and shipbuilding sectors were some of the few hit hard, with exports on petroleum goods in November falling 36% on year.
With Iranian oil jumping into the market early next year, global oil prices are likely to slide even further, raising concerns in Korea that a further drop will delay a recovery in the country's leading export sectors like shipbuilding, steel, and machinery. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Income inequality is a growing problem in many parts of the world. Korea is no exception. A new report shows the gap between the haves and have-nots in Korea is even widening further in some cases. And as our Kim Min-ji reports, the nation's economic condition isn't helping either.
Inequality in Korea hasn't changed much over the past few years. According to the Korea Institute for Health and Social Affairs, the country's Gini coefficient, which measures inequality, has come to a standstill or dipped in terms of disposable income and spending. A rating of 0 means complete income equality, while higher numbers up to 1 indicate a widening gap between the rich and poor. In the wake of the global financial crisis, the coefficient climbed to 0.305 in terms of disposable income. Then it started a downward trend, falling to 0.294 in 2013.
and it has remained unchanged since. As for spending, the Gini ratio stood at 0.266 in 2009. It decreased again in the following years, but in 2012 it went up again, and as of last year it stood at 0.262.
The trend over the last 3 years is reflective of a slow economy and a lack of jobs. When the economy is in a slump, the upper class remains fine, while the lower classes get hit, adding to their hardships, thus widening the wealth gap.
Meanwhile, Korea's relative poverty rate, which indicates the ratio of households that earn less than 50% of the median income, hit 14.2% in the aftermath of the global financial crisis. But as of last year, it fell to 13.3%, showing a slight improvement in the country's poverty level. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Tug of War, the game, I mean. We all know what that is. It's a classic birthday party game for kids and not limited to children, of course. Yes, where you line people up in two groups on opposite ends of the rope, find a spot on the ground to mark as the middle, and off you go. The goal is for one team to pull the other over the mark on the ground. Well, in Asia, and more specifically here in Korea, tug of war isn't just a game. For centuries, it's been practiced as a ritual to pray for abundant harvest and boost solidarity in rice farming communities. That tugging ritual has earned UNESCO's recognition as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. 줄다리기, as known in Korean, our news feature tonight.
Tug of war, also known as 줄다리기 in Korean, has long been a favorite folk game in the country. The game basically consists of two teams of people pulling a rope from opposite sides, and the team that pulls harder wins. On December 2nd, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, recognized these tugging rituals and games as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. The organization says the tug-of-war tradition, practiced in East Asia and Southeast Asia to pray for abundant harvest, promotes harmony and solidarity of rice farming communities.
UNESCO deals with the world's cultures. It was actually my dream to make this regional culture known to the world. The idea alone makes me happy. It's indescribable.
The listing was a joint effort by 4 nations, the team led by Korea and joined by the Philippines, Cambodia, and Vietnam. Few rules might differ depending on the country's environmental conditions like climate, but the essence is that villagers cooperate in the agricultural ritual and enjoy, regardless of who wins.
Joint listings are recommended by UNESCO. These listings are considered valuable because intangible heritage is often shared across borders, and the process of preparation itself promotes communication between cultures.
Historical records of Korea's tugging games and rituals date back to the 15th century. It was usually played on the 15th day of Lunar New Year, which would fall in spring in terms of seasons, and brought the people together to mark the beginning of a new agricultural cycle. It was believed that the winning team would have good harvest that year. The culture spread across the nation, represented by 6 versions of different regions, all of which got their place on the UNESCO list this month. Of the 6 regions, the Kijishi village of the city of Tangjin boasts the longest history.
For 500 years, Kijishi village has made a long straw rope every time a disaster hit or something bad happened. It started out from the legend that the village will find peace if a lot of people pull a rope together.
From the mid-16th century, village people would overcome hardships by tugging the rope together, and the tradition continues to this date, as the village hosts a tug-of-war festival every April. The rope used in Kijishi village's tug-of-war is made by weaving a very thick straw rope in the middle and then making branches of thinner ropes for people to hold on to. Rope making begins a month before the festival, with all the villagers participating, as the rope is some 100 meters long, weighing around 20 tons and boasting a diameter of 1 meter.
Kijishi's Tug of War's rope represents dragons. It depicts two female dragons that have completed their duties on land, getting ready to ascend. It takes some 3 hours to move the rope from where it's made to where the festival is held, even if thousands of people help out. It's moved only with manpower. People shout "Uyotcha" together to represent a joint step forward.
Kijishi village now plans to develop the region into a cultural attraction of tug of war and grow the festival into a larger-scale event, attracting foreign tourists as well.
Tangjin will support the spread of tugging rituals and games through administrative and policy efforts.
After 500 years since its birth, Korea's folk game of tug of war, 줄다리기, proudly continues its valuable history, now as a UNESCO-recognized cultural heritage.
U.S. Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump has called for a ban on all Muslims trying to immigrate to the United States. Bruce Harrison joins me live in the studio. Bruce, tell us more about Donald Trump's remarks this time around, which is a bombshell even on Donald Trump's standard of bombast.
Look, Anyang, Trump was very clear in his intentions this time. In his own words, he said that he's ordering a complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. He said the country's has no choice until U.S. representatives can figure out what's going on in regards to terrorism.
Well, what is Donald Trump trying to gain from this dramatic statement?
This is far from the first time that he's made inflammatory remarks regarding race and religion, one and the same. This time, it looks like he's just trying to secure more votes ahead of the Republican primaries this spring. Aside from that, it's a tactic that's worked so far, but one that's lost him endorsements and powerful backers. Unclear, though, what fallout, if any, his campaign will face this time. In addition to calling for a ban on Muslims, he also said mosques in the U.S. need to be scrutinized.
We have no choice. We have to see what's happening. Because something is happening in there. Man, there's anger. There's anger. And we have to know about it.
A leading American Muslim advocacy group expressed anger, but not from within a mosque.
This rhetoric echoes the policies enacted by Nazi Germany against the Jews. Have we learned anything from history, Mr. Trump?
According to the FBI, the Muslim couple who shot and killed 14 people in San Bernardino, California last week had been radicalized. The Islamic State's purportedly released a video that looks to draw recruits from China by song. It's a 4-minute-long song sung in Mandarin and calls on Muslim brothers to awaken. The release of the song prompted China's foreign ministry to say there must be greater global cooperation to fight terrorism.
In the face of terrorism, no country can stand on its own, and the international community should stand closer together and cooperate to jointly strike against all forms of terrorism.
China's been increasingly affected by militant groups as its economic and business interests grow abroad. Beijing vowed justice last month after the Islamic State killed a Chinese captive.
Well, staying in Beijing, Beijing has issued its highest level alert for pollution. But the Chinese government is reacting differently this time.
Yeah, this is the highest alert it's ever issued. This time they ask all schools to shut down. They ask all construction sites to halt construction until Beijing gives the all clear. The government's never done that before, as I said. It's an extreme situation. Tuesday's the third day heavy smogs choked the city, largely a result of China's heavy reliance on coal-fired power plants. The air quality forces many people to stay inside. This mother in Beijing said she can't let her child outside to play.
It really makes you bitter and lose your patience.
Chinese researchers have said pollution's a major cause of unrest around the country right now.
Well, Bruce, this intense alert comes as global leaders gather in Paris for one of the most crucial climate change conferences in history.
That's right. The Paris summit's in its third week. In the first week, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said there's going to be a major climate catastrophe. I believe those were his exact words, if nothing's done to check global warming. And it wasn't long after that China said it's going to try and curb some of the environmental harms in its society, in particular the heavy pollution we're seeing right now in Beijing.
Right. Environmental, yes, but also it's very dangerous to the human health as well. We've been getting reports that in Beijing, in some parts of that city, people can only see up to 200 meters from where they are. And, you know, this smog is also full of poisonous gas as well, so that could be very harmful for you.
Sure, visibility is limited, and the impact on the body has been scientifically proven, so it's just not a good time to be outside, and China really needs to step up its efforts to improve health as well as the environment.
Right, and the poisonous gas levels in that city right now apparently is 10 times what the WHO says it's the maximum level that human body can withstand. So it is worrisome. We'll have to keep an eye on that situation.
All right.
All right, Bruce, thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, still of concern, but a little bit on the reassurance side for those of us in Korea is that the toxic smog over in China won't affect the Korean peninsula. Not directly, but still some parts of Korea will get high level of dust levels for tomorrow. For details on the weather update, let's go over to Jihan. Jihan, where is this dust coming from?
Well, hello, Ganyang. Although we are safe from the hazardous dust from China, we'll still be affected by dust coming from our own country, no less. Seoul, as well as most of other regions, will see high levels of it. So if you're in these areas, be sure to have a mask ready before heading out and try to avoid outdoor activities if possible. But putting the dust aside, conditions will be milder than today, with the thermometer here in the capital expected to hit double digits at 10, and that's about 4 degrees higher than this seasonal averages. But once again, if you plan to head out, be sure to check the air quality levels first. On that note, let's check on to tomorrow's temperatures first. Here in the capital, we'll kick off at 0 for Daejeon as well. Daegu gets up to 3, while Busan and Jeju will start out their day at 8 and 10. And afternoon highs will be milder than today, as Seoul will see a high of 10, and Daegu peaks at 13, and Busan and Jeju Island will see a high of 16 and 17 respectively. Now, neither snow nor rain is in the forecast for the time being here in the capital. It's just going to be cloudy skies to mostly sunny skies for a while, and temperatures will also going to remain above the seasonal averages, and even lows will stay above the freezing point for most of the days. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that is our broadcast on this Tuesday night. Thanks everyone for watching, and we hope to see you right back here, same time tomorrow on NewsCenter.